The millionaire widower hid to test his fiancée with the triplets, but ended up discovering the housekeeper's secret. Before we start the story, tell me in the comments, from which city are you watching? And at the end, do not forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. The mansion was quiet. Too quiet. Leonard Wolf stopped in the main hallway and felt his body react before he even understood why. Silence and 3-year-old triplets were two things that simply did not exist in the same universe. He tilted his head, trying to catch any sound. Laughter, crying, a fight over a toy, something falling, anything. But all he heard was the distant echo of a woman's voice coming from the main room. A voice he was not expecting. Leonard took a few silent steps across the marble hallway, still holding the travel bag he had not even managed to set down properly. The meeting had been cancelled at the last minute. He came home early, and now? This. When he finally stopped at the entrance of the living room, the scene hit him like a punch to the chest. Max, Leo, and Ben were sitting side by side on the colorful rug in front of the giant TV. Each one held their own little stuffed bunny, one faded blue, one slightly crooked pink, and one yellow with a frayed ear. They were not crying, they were not making a scene. But they had that kind of silence that hurt more than any tears. Their little eyes were shiny, that kind of shine that stays on the eyelashes and makes anyone's chest tighten. Their lips trembled slightly, as if they were trying to be brave but did not really know how. The smallest one was biting his lip hard, the middle one rubbed his nose with the back of his hand, and the third squeezed his bunny so tight his fingers were turning white. On the TV, their favorite cartoon, the one with the giant yellow bear they loved, was gone. In its place, a pastel-colored makeup tutorial played, with a woman talking about highlighter and contour in a tone far too cheerful for that moment. Madison Clark sat on the beige leather sofa, legs crossed, completely absorbed in her phone and the TV at the same time. Her hair was perfectly styled in a low bun. Her light outfit had not a single wrinkle, and her expression was one of full concentration, as if the 3 little boys curled up on the floor simply did not exist. Leonard felt something rise in his throat, but he could not tell if it was anger, sadness, or just shock. And then Leo, the middle one, the one with big shiny eyes who always asked for things without needing to speak, murmured softly, his voice unsteady. "Mommy, I wanted Sunny Bear." It was not crying, it was worse. It was that weak whisper of a child trying not to bother anyone. Madison waved her hand in the air, impatient, without taking her eyes off the screen. "You have watched that cartoon 1,000 times. My show is live. It is a new partnership. I need to watch it now." Then she turned the TV volume up. The 3 boys made the same expression, the little sad pout, eyes almost overflowing, and a tiny held-back sob that did not come out because they were trying to be good. No tantrum, just the pain of a child being ignored. Leonard took half a step forward, ready to step in, but something made him stop. Because right at that moment, the kitchen door opened with a soft creak, and Harper Doyle walked into the room carrying a basket of folded clothes and the tired look of someone who had already argued with 3 doors, a faucet, and a stubborn bucket in the last 2 hours. She stopped in the middle of the room, looked around with the expression of someone sniffing out trouble, and frowned. "Okay," she said slowly, setting the basket on the sofa beside her. "I heard suspicious silence in the hallway. Who fought with whom?" The triplets turned their little heads toward her at the same time and pointed at the TV. Harper followed their fingers, saw the beauty tutorial on the screen, and the basket simply slipped from her hand and fell back onto the sofa with a soft thud. She took a deep breath, placed her hands on her hips, and looked around the room as if searching for someone specific. Then she called, "Gary?" Silence. "Gary," she repeated in the tone of someone losing patience. "Do not play hard to get today. I need you." Madison finally looked away from her screen and frowned, confused. "Who is Gary?" Harper answered without even looking at her, already bending down to pick up the remote that had been left on the side table. The remote, of course. She pointed at the table where it was lying. "The one that thinks it is the boss of everyone." Madison blinked, stunned. Harper tapped the remote lightly, as if waking someone up, and murmured softly, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Gary, let's show some manners today. The children first." And with one precise click, the cartoon came back on the screen. The triplets smiled right away. Max clapped his hands. Leo let out a relieved sigh. Ben hugged the yellow bunny tight. Madison jumped off the couch like she had been shocked. "Give me that remote. You must be joking, Harper." Harper turned to her with a completely calm expression. "Oh, of course, Mrs. Madison." And then, with the ease of someone who does this every single day, she flipped the remote over, opened the battery compartment, and removed both batteries in one quick, precise motion. She handed the now disabled remote to Madison with a sweet smile. Madison stared at the object in her hand as if she had just received a remote without an instruction manual. Harper lifted her chin and raised the two batteries in the air as if she were holding invisible trophies, and she delivered the line that silenced the entire room. "You can keep the remote, Mrs. Madison." Pause. "But the ones with energy here are them." The triplets clapped again, giggling softly, and it was in that instant, that tiny, silent moment of poetic justice, that Harper finally turned her head and saw Leonard Wolfe standing in the hallway. In a flawless royal blue suit, suitcase still in hand, eyes fixed on her. He had seen everything. Harper froze, the batteries still lifted in the air, her smile fading slowly. She looked at the lamp beside her and whispered, just loud enough for Leonard to hear, "Really, universe? Not today." And the silence returned. But this time, it was a completely different kind of silence. The silence that filled the room had that strange quality of being heavy and fragile at the same time, as if any sudden move could break everything at once. Harper was still holding the batteries in the air, frozen like a badly positioned museum statue. Leonard remained in the hallway, suitcase in hand, eyes fixed on her. Madison held the disabled remote as if it were a device without instructions. And the triplets? Well, the triplets were peacefully watching Sunny Bear again, completely unaware of the emotional storm about to explode in the room. Madison was the one who broke the silence first. She dropped the remote on the couch with a sharp motion, crossed her arms, and turned to Harper with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Seriously, Harper?" Her voice was controlled, but carried that sharp tone that cut through the air. "You think you can just come in here and undermine me in front of the children?" Harper blinked, slowly lowered the batteries, and looked around as if searching for an emergency exit that didn't exist. She began, but the sentence fell apart halfway. Madison stepped forward, still giving that cold smile. "You just what? Decided you're in charge here? That you know more than I do about these children?" Harper took a deep breath and looked at the lamp beside the couch. She whispered softly, but everyone heard, "Sorry, friend. I used you as a witness without asking permission." Madison frowned, confused. "Are you talking to a lamp?" "Technically, I'm apologizing to it," Harper corrected, still serious. "There's a difference." From the rug, Max lifted his head and shouted with excitement, "Gary!" Leo repeated it, clapping, "Gary!" Ben simply raised the yellow bunny in the air as if making a silent toast. Madison closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and turned to Leonard, who still hadn't said a single word. "Leonard, are you seeing this?" She pointed at Harper with a dramatic gesture. "She disrespected me, took the remote out of my hand, made me look like the villain, and now she is talking to furniture." Leonard finally moved. He took a few steps into the room, set his suitcase gently on the floor, and looked at Madison with the neutral expression he used in tense business meetings. "Madison," he said, his voice calm but firm. "The children were asking for the cartoon. They watch that cartoon every day." Madison snapped, her voice rising. "I just wanted to watch one live." "One. It's work, Leonard. Important partnership." Leonard looked at the TV where Sunny Bear was dancing happily, and then at the triplets, who were cuddled with their bunnies, finally relaxed. "They're 3 years old, Madison." Pause. "They don't understand partnerships. They understand cartoons." Madison opened her mouth to argue, but Leonard raised a hand, stopping the argument before it could start. Then he turned to Harper, and for the first time since he walked into the room, his eyes softened. "Harper," he said, and there was something different in his voice, something that sounded almost like gratitude. "Thank you for taking care of them." Harper blinked, surprised, and automatically hid the batteries behind her back, as if she had been caught taking cookies. "I just put the cartoon back on, Mr. Wolfe. Nothing important." "It was important," Leonard corrected, with a half-smile that lasted only a second. And I want to be clear, they can watch cartoons whenever they want. Always. He looked at Madison when he said that last word. She went pale. And Harper? Harper felt the floor shift a little under her feet, because she had just gained, without meaning to, a powerful enemy. Madison didn't say anything else. She just grabbed her phone, turned on her heels, and left the room with firm, controlled steps. The kind of exit that said, "This isn't over," without needing a single word. When the door closed, not loudly, but with that cold precision, Harper let out the breath she had been holding. She looked at the lamp again. "She's going to fire me, right?" she whispered. The lamp, of course, didn't answer. But Leonard heard. He took a few more steps toward the triplets, who immediately dropped their bunnies and ran to hug their father's legs. "Daddy's back!" Max shouted, clinging to his left knee. "Did you see Sonny Bear?" Leo asked, pointing at the TV. Ben just hugged the right leg tightly, without saying anything, but smiling in a way that could melt anyone. Leonard crouched, ruffled their hair, and looked at Harper over the tops of 3 blonde heads. "No one is firing you, Harper." She blinked. "Mr. Wolf, with all due respect, Mrs. Madison seems to have other ideas." Leonard stood up slowly, fixed the knot of his tie, and picked up his suitcase again. "I make the decisions here," he said, just like that. "And you're staying." Then he left the room, leaving Harper alone with 3 children, 2 bunnies, 1 witness lamp, and a deactivated remote control lying on the sofa. She stood still for a full 5 seconds, processing what had just happened. Then she looked at the batteries still in her hand, looked at the triplets, looked at the lamp, and whispered, "I am definitely not paid enough for this level of drama." Max stepped away from the TV and ran to her, pulling on the hem of her shirt. "Aunt Harper, are you leaving?" Her heart tightened. She crouched, got down to his level, and gently ruffled his hair. "No, sweetheart, I'm not going anywhere." "Promise?" Leo asked, appearing beside her with the pink bunny pressed to his chest. Harper held out her pinky finger. "I promise." All 3 did the same, wrapping their tiny pinkies around hers. And it was in that moment, that small, pure moment of tenderness in the middle of chaos, that Harper understood the truth. She wasn't just the cleaning lady. She was the one who put the cartoon back on, the one who returned the bunnies, the one who talked to Gary. And apparently, the one who had just stepped into a silent war with an influencer who had perfect nails and a sharp smile. Harper sighed, put the batteries in the pocket of her apron, and stood up. "All right, everyone," she said, clapping her hands. "Who wants a snack?" All 3 shouted, "Me!" at the same time and ran toward the kitchen, tripping over each other and laughing out loud. Harper followed them, but before leaving the room, she looked back one last time. The remote without batteries was still lying on the sofa. She smiled to herself. "Goodbye, Gary. Until the next battle," and she closed the door. Meanwhile, upstairs, Leonard stood in front of the office window, looking at the garden without really seeing it. The suitcase was still on the floor, forgotten. He picked up his phone, opened Madison's profile, and scrolled slowly. Photo after photo of perfect smiles, posed angles, motivational captions, beauty campaigns, softly edited videos. He stopped at a recent picture, Madison with the triplets, all dressed in white, smiling for the camera. The caption said, "Family is everything. My heart is complete." In the comments, hundreds of people praising, hearts, emotional emojis. Leonard locked the screen and set the phone on the desk, because for the first time he had seen the difference between the image and the truth. Harper Doyle had a theory about Mondays. They were personally vengeful. And that particular Monday seemed determined to prove a point. It all started at 6:30 in the morning, when she walked into the kitchen and found the coffee maker making that suspicious noise, that metallic rumble that never meant anything good. "No," she whispered, pointing a finger at the machine. "Don't even think about it. You are not doing this to me today." The coffee maker responded with a burst of coffee that shot out the side, splashing dark liquid across the entire white marble counter. Harper closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and counted to 3. "All right, you chose violence." She grabbed the dish towel, unplugged the coffee maker with dramatic flair, and started cleaning the mess while murmuring softly, "You know what? I treat you well. I clean you every day. But you wait until Monday to explode. That's betrayal, my friend, pure betrayal." Is Aunt Harper mad at the machine? Max's little voice came from the kitchen door. Harper turned and saw the three triplets standing there, still in their pajamas, each holding their own bunny. Max with the blue one, Leo with the pink one, Ben with the yellow one that was already falling apart. She smiled even with the coffee-soaked cloth in her hand. No, kiddo, I'm just negotiating. What is negos? Leo tried to repeat the word, frowning. It's when we try to convince things to work with us, Harper explained, squeezing the cloth in the sink. Like me trying to convince this coffee maker not to explode again. Ben took 2 steps forward and pointed at the machine. Is it mean? Harper tilted her head, thinking, no, it's just dramatic. Some people wake up in a bad mood. This is a coffee maker that wakes up explosive. The three of them laughed. Then Max said, completely serious, like the laundry room door. Harper froze mid-movement. You notice that the laundry door has a temper? Max nodded proudly. It slams by itself. It slams by itself, Harper repeated, impressed. Wow, you're way too observant for a 3-year-old. Leo jumped a little. And Gary too. Gary is the most temperamental of all, Harper agreed, putting the cloth away. But we have an agreement. He listens when I ask politely. Ben lifted the yellow bunny in the air. Polite? Harper laughed, grabbed 3 juice cups and set them on the low table where the triplets always had breakfast. That's right, Ben. Being polite solves half the problems in life. The other half we solve by taking out the batteries. The 3 clapped and ran to the table, dragging their chairs noisily. Harper watched them for a moment, feeling that warm feeling in her chest she still didn't know how to name. And then the laundry room door slammed. By itself. Hard. Harper turned slowly, stared at the closed door and put her hands on her hips. Oh really? Now you want attention too? Silence. She took 3 steps toward the door, grabbed the knob, and pulled. Stuck. Seriously? Harper pulled again. You're doing this now? The door didn't move. She tried again. Nothing. Look, I know you have a temper, I respect that. But I have 3 loads of laundry to wash, a coffee maker to fix, and 0 patience for hinge drama this morning. Max appeared beside her, holding the blue bunny. Aunt Harper, try being polite. Harper looked at him, then at the door, and sighed. All right, let's try. She crouched down, eye level with the doorknob, and said in the sweetest voice she could manage. Please, dear door, could you work with me today? I promise I'll oil your hinges tomorrow. She pulled again. The door opened. Harper's jaw dropped. Max clapped. It worked! It worked! Harper repeated, amazed. Being polite even works with doors. Leo and Ben came running over, curious. What did it want? Leo asked. Attention, Harper answered, walking into the laundry room and grabbing the laundry basket. Just like everyone else in this house, she walked back to the kitchen, but as she passed through the door, she looked back and whispered, Thank you, my friend. You're high-strung, but you're good at heart. At 9 in the morning, Harper was vacuuming the main living room when the machine started making that dying motor sound. She turned it off, turned it on again. Nothing. No, she murmured, shaking the vacuum. You cannot break now. Not today. We have visitors coming tomorrow. The vacuum gave one last dramatic sigh and died. Harper looked up at the ceiling. Universe, are you joking with me today? Did Aunt Harper say a bad word? Max asked, suddenly appearing again with his brothers behind him. No, Harper answered quickly. I said, joking, which is a polite way of saying the universe is messing with me. Oh, the 3 said together, as if that made perfect sense. Harper knelt down, opened the vacuum compartment, and saw the problem. The bag was stuffed with dust, hair, and a small toy she had no idea how it got in there. Oh, so that's it, she said, pulling out the toy. You swallowed a toy car and got cranky. Leo grabbed the car from her hand. It's mine. It was yours, Harper corrected. Now it belongs to the vacuum. It earned it fair and square. Ben laughed. Max imitated her voice. It earned it fair and square, Harper finished, smiling. It means it fought to keep working. She changed the bag, turned the vacuum on again, and the sound came back steady, normal, no drama. There. She nodded, satisfied. Everyone's happy. Then she heard a voice coming from the stairs. Harper, do you always talk to appliances? She froze, turned slowly. Leonard Wolf was standing on the middle step, wearing a light blue dress shirt and tailored pants, holding a cup of coffee. His expression was as neutral as always, but his eyes had a different shine. Something like curiosity. Harper cleared her throat. Mr. Wolf, good morning. I didn't know you were home. Meeting got cancelled, he said, stepping down 2 more stairs. Again, pause. So you talked to them? Harper looked at the vacuum cleaner, then at him. Technically, I negotiate with them. There's a difference. Leonard took a sip of coffee, trying to hide a smile. I see. Max ran to his father, pulling the hem of his pants. Daddy, Aunt Harper talks to the door too. And to the coffee maker, Leo added. And to Gary, Ben shouted, jumping. Leonard looked at the 3 boys, then at Harper. Gary? The remote, Harper explained, a little embarrassed. We have a history. Leonard nodded, as if that made perfect sense. Of course. He took another sip of coffee, watched the triplets clinging to Harper like 3 little ducklings, and something changed in his expression. It wasn't judgment, it was recognition. Harper, he said, his voice softer, thank you for taking care of the house, and of them. She blinked, surprised. I just do my job, Mr. Wolf. You do more than that, he replied. Then he went back upstairs to his office, leaving Harper standing in the living room, holding the vacuum and feeling her chest tighten in a strange way. Max tugged at her shirt. Aunt Harper, you're red. No, I'm not, she said quickly. It's the heat from the vacuum. Leo frowned. Vacuums don't make heat. This one does, Harper insisted. It's dramatic and warm. Later that day, Leonard was in his office reviewing contracts when he heard voices coming from the garden. He stood up, walked to the window, and looked down. Harper was sitting on the grass with the triplets gathered around her. Max and Leo were fighting over a red toy car. It's mine, Max yelled. No, it's mine, Leo shouted back. Harper lifted her hand, and both boys stopped immediately. All right, she said calmly. New rule, whoever yells less gets to choose first. The 2 of them went quiet. Ben, who had just been watching, raised his hand slowly. I didn't yell, Harper smiled. Then you choose, Ben. Ben picked up the red car and handed it to Leo. You were more sad. Leo hugged his brother. And Max, even without the car, smiled. Leonard stayed at the window, watching the scene and feeling something strange in his chest. Because in 30 seconds he had just seen what Madison never managed to do in months. Teach empathy. With gentleness, with love, without yelling. He rested his forehead against the glass and whispered softly, Who are you, Harper Doyle? Madison Clark had one golden rule for social media. Family content got more engagement than any beauty campaign, and that Tuesday was the perfect day to prove it. She had just closed a partnership with a premium children's clothing brand, the kind of brand that paid 5 figures for a well-made post. All she needed was 3 cute kids, natural smiles, and a flawless aesthetic. Simple, right? Wrong. Very wrong. At 10 in the morning, the mansion's main room had been turned into an improvised studio. Ring light set up, tripod adjusted, reflector positioned, and a pile of white and beige clothes spread across the sofa. Madison stood in the middle of everything, checking her phone, while Max, Leo, and Ben watched with the suspicious look of children who know something strange is about to happen. All right, boys, Madison said, putting her phone aside and picking up 3 identical outfits. Let's take off these old clothes and put these on. It's just for the photo, it'll be quick. Max looked at the beige outfit in her hand and frowned. I don't like beige. You don't need to like it, Madison replied, already losing patience. You just need to look nice in the photo. Leo stepped back, holding the little pink bunny tight. And will Rosie be in the photo? Madison looked at the worn-out bunny, with its bent ear and faded color, and made a face. No, bunnies don't match the aesthetic. Ben hugged the yellow bunny to his chest. But I want Sunny. You'll be without the bunnies for 5 minutes, Madison said, holding out her hand. Give them to me. The 3 boys stepped back at the same time. And that was when Harper walked into the room carrying a tray with juice and cookies. She stopped halfway, looked at the ring light, the tripod, Madison holding the clothes, and felt that tightness in her chest that always came when something was wrong. Good morning, she said slowly, placing the tray on the side table. What is going on here? Madison turned to her with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Photo shoot, new campaign, nothing that concerns you, Harper. Harper looked at the triplets, who were huddled near the sofa, and her stomach tightened, but she only nodded and moved to the corner of the room, pretending to fix some pillows. Meanwhile, she was talking in her mind to the ring light tripod. Hold this family together, my friend, because I cannot handle this alone. 15 minutes later, everything had gone downhill. Max was wearing a beige outfit, but his face was upset. Leo had managed to hide the little pink bunny behind his back, and Ben was on the verge of tears because Madison had taken Sunny out of his hands. "Smile," Madison ordered, positioning the three of them in front of the camera. "Come on, boys, just one smile." Max crossed his arms. "I do not want to smile." "Max, you are going to smile," Madison said through her teeth, forcing her own smile for the camera. Leo tried to run, but she held his shoulder firmly. "Nobody leaves until we finish." Ben gave a small sob. Harper, who was in the corner pretending to fold a blanket, felt her chest tighten painfully. She looked at the tripod and whispered, "If you fall now and ruin this session, I will forgive you for all the times you almost knocked me down." The tripod, of course, did not fall, but Ben stumbled. And when he stumbled, he bumped into the small table where Madison had placed an expensive perfume bottle, limited edition, important partnership, the type of thing she planned to show in a detailed close-up. The bottle wobbled, fell, and shattered on the marble floor with a loud crash that echoed through the whole room. The smell of flowers and vanilla filled the air. Ben started crying for real, and Madison exploded. "You are impossible," she shouted, her hands shaking. "Three little hurricanes. I cannot do anything with you around." Max stepped back, scared. Leo started crying too. Ben sobbed loudly, trying to reach the yellow bunny lying on the sofa. And Harper? Harper dropped the blanket, crossed the room in 3 steps, and knelt in front of the triplets. "It is all right," she said softly, her voice firm but gentle. "Nobody did anything wrong." Madison turned to her, furious. "Harper, stay out of this. They are children, Mrs. Madison," Harper replied, still kneeling. "Children stumble. Children drop things. That is what they do. They ruined my campaign." Harper finally stood up, picked up the yellow bunny from the sofa and handed it to Ben, who grabbed it tightly and pressed his face into it. Then she picked up the pink bunny Leo had dropped on the floor during the confusion and returned it to him. And then she looked at Madison. "The campaign can be redone," Harper said, her voice calm but carrying a weight that filled the air. "But what you just did to them, that cannot be erased." Madison turned pale. "Are you giving me a lecture? You?" Harper did not answer. She simply took Max's hand, then Leo's, then Ben's, and the three of them left the room in silence, leaving Madison alone in the middle of the improvised studio, surrounded by expensive clothes, broken glass, and a perfume smell that now felt too strong. She stood still for a few seconds, breathing deeply, trying to control her anger. Then she grabbed her phone and posted the only photo she had managed to take. Max upset, Leo uncomfortable, Ben almost crying, but she edited it. Soft filter. Brightness in the eyes. Digitally adjusted smiles. Perfect caption. Family is everything. Even on hard days, love always wins. Heart mom, perfect family. Posted, and in 5 minutes comments started appearing. So beautiful. A family from a commercial. You are an amazing mother. Madison smiled, put her phone away, and ignored the broken glass on the floor. Later, Leonard was in his office reviewing emails when a notification appeared on his phone. A new post. Madison had posted. He opened the photo. He saw the triplets, dressed in beige with perfect smiles and a flawless background. He read the caption and frowned, because he knew those smiles, and those were not real smiles. He zoomed in, looked into Max's eyes, into Leo's eyes, into Ben's eyes, and he saw it. Discomfort, tiredness, hidden sadness. Leonard locked the phone and set it down slowly on the desk. He stared at the black screen for a long time, then whispered quietly, only to himself, "What am I doing?" At that exact moment, downstairs, Harper was sitting on the floor of the triplets' bedroom, with the three of them gathered close around her. Max was on her lap, holding the blue bunny. Leo was leaning on her shoulder, clutching the pink one. Ben was lying on the rug, hugging the yellow Sunny. None of them spoke. They just stayed there, quiet, safe. Harper brushed her hand gently through Max's hair. "Are you all right?" she asked softly. Max nodded but said nothing. Leo murmured. "She took Rosie." "I know," Harper said, her voice tight, "but he's here now, and no one is taking him away again." Ben lifted Sunny in the air. "Promise?" Harper held out her little finger. "I promise." The three of them linked their little fingers with hers, and Harper closed her eyes, taking a deep breath, trying to control the wave of emotion rising in her throat. Because she knew. She knew. Those children weren't a photo backdrop. They weren't a campaign. They weren't content. They were Max, Leo, and Ben, 3 boys, 3 years old, who only wanted their bunnies, their cartoons, and someone who truly saw them. And she made a silent promise right then. As long as she was in that house, no one would take that away from them. No one. Madison Clark had a mental list of things that irritated her deeply. At the top of that list, far above messy nails and bad selfie lighting, was one very specific thing: Harper Doyle. And on that sunny Thursday, she decided to do something about it. The afternoon tea with her influencer friends was the perfect setting: a controlled environment, trusted witnesses, and the perfect excuse to put Harper in the place Madison believed she belonged: invisible. At 3 in the afternoon, the living room was spotless. Coffee table decorated with white flowers, fine porcelain, silver trays with imported sweets, and 4 perfectly dressed women sitting on the sofa, all with practiced smiles and phones in hand. Harper stood in the corner of the room, holding a tray of iced tea, trying to be as discreet as possible. Which, considering she had already tripped twice on the hem of her own apron, wasn't going very well. Max, Leo, and Ben were sitting near the window, quietly playing with building blocks, each with his own bunny beside him. Madison had made it clear, with a sharp look, that they could stay as long as they stayed silent. The 3 obeyed. For now. So Madison, one of the friends with platinum blonde hair and long red nails, said in that tone of gossip disguised as curiosity, "How do you keep this house so perfect with 3 children?" Madison smiled, crossing her legs with elegance. "Organization and an efficient staff." She looked at Harper when she said efficient. Her tone was sweet, but her eyes, cold. Harper pretended not to notice and began serving the tea, filling the cups carefully while whispering softly to the tray. "If I drop you here, it's because you asked for it, okay?" The tray, of course, didn't answer, but Harper felt like it agreed. "Harper," Madison called, her voice louder than needed for the size of the room. "Can you bring more ice?" "Yes, Mrs. Madison," Harper replied, balancing the tray. She turned to head to the kitchen, but as she took the first step, her foot got caught on the rug. The tray wobbled. One of the cups slid and fell right into the lap of the friend with the red nails. The iced tea spread across the light beige dress, leaving a large stain. The woman let out a sharp scream. Harper froze, still holding the tray, eyes wide. I'm so sorry," she said quickly, reaching for a napkin. "It was an accident. Harper." Madison stood up, her eyes shining with something that wasn't exactly anger, but opportunity. "You always do this." Harper blinked. Not always, Mrs. Madison. It was just an accident." "An accident?" Madison crossed her arms, her voice rising. "You spilled a glass last week, broke a vase last month, and now this?" The other 3 friends watched in silence, like an audience for a show no one had asked to see. Harper took a deep breath, looked at the tray in her hands, and silently begged, "Help me not say everything stuck in my throat, please." "I'm sorry," she repeated, her voice firm but quiet. "I'll clean it right away." "No," Madison said, stepping forward. "You've done enough." Pause. "In fact, you always do too much, don't you?" Harper frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" Madison smiled, but it was one of those smiles that cut. "You think you're more of a mother than an employee, Harper? Have you noticed that?" The air in the room grew heavy. The friends exchanged uncomfortable looks, and from the little corner by the window, Max, Leo, and Ben stopped playing. All 3 looked at Harper, holding their bunnies tight. Harper felt her chest tighten, but kept her voice calm. "I just take care of them, Mrs. Madison. It's part of my job." "Taking care is one thing," Madison replied, her voice sharp. "But you cross boundaries. You give opinions, interfere, as if you had the right to make decisions about my children." Harper opened her mouth to respond, but Madison didn't give her the chance. "And on top of that, you're clumsy. A problem. Honestly, I don't even know why you're still here." Silence. Complete. The friends looked down at their phones, clearly uncomfortable. And Harper? Harper looked down at the tray again. She took a deep breath. And then, in the calmest voice she could manage, she said, "Ma'am, you are right about one thing, Mrs. Madison." Madison raised an eyebrow, surprised. "Oh, really?" "Yes," Harper said. "I do care about them, maybe even too much. But not because I cross boundaries. It's because someone has to." The sentence fell into the room like an invisible weight. Madison turned pale. One of her friends, the one with brown hair and sunglasses on her head, looked at Harper with a different expression. Something like respect. Another cleared her throat, uncomfortable, and the one with the stained dress murmured, "Well, accidents happen, right?" Madison turned to her, furious. "Are you defending her?" The friend lifted her hands. "No, I just think it really was an accident." Madison took a deep breath, clearly trying to keep her composure in front of her guests. But her eyes, fixed on Harper, said everything. "This isn't over." And right at that moment, Leonard Wolf walked into the room. He had returned early from a meeting and was still in his suit, tie slightly loosened, briefcase in hand. He stopped at the entrance, looked around, and understood the atmosphere immediately. Heavy, tense, wrong. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. Madison turned to him with a forced smile. "Nothing, dear. Just a small accident." Leonard looked at the guest's stained dress, then at the tray in Harper's hands, then at the triplets huddled in the corner holding their bunnies, and then he looked at Madison. "What kind of accident?" "Harper spilled tea," Madison explained, her voice too sweet. "Again." Leonard looked at Harper. She had her head lowered, holding the tray like it was a shield. "It was an accident, Mr. Wolf," she said softly. "I know," he replied. Madison blinked. "What do you mean, you know?" Leonard took a few steps into the room, set the briefcase down, and crossed his arms. "Because Harper is not clumsy. She takes care of this house better than anyone I've ever hired." A pause. "And if she spilled something, it was an accident. Accidents happen." The sentence echoed exactly what the friend had said seconds earlier. Madison turned red. "Leonard, you weren't here. You didn't see." "I saw enough," he cut in, still calm, but with a weight that left no room for argument. He looked at the guests. "I'm sorry for the inconvenience. Harper, can you take the boys to the kitchen? They must be hungry." Harper nodded, relieved. "Yes, Mr. Wolf." She set the tray on the table, signaled discreetly to the triplets, and the three of them ran to her, grabbing her hand tightly. Max looked back before leaving and saw Madison still standing there, pale and furious. He squeezed Harper's hand tighter and whispered, "Aunt Harper, are you okay?" Harper crouched down to his level and smiled, even with tearful eyes. "I'm okay, sweetheart. I'm okay." "But Leo, always observant, asked quietly, 'Is Mamadi mad at you?'" Harper didn't answer. She just kissed his forehead and led the three of them out of the room. When the door closed, Leonard turned to Madison. Her friends were silent, clearly wanting to disappear. "Madison," he said, his voice low, "I need to talk to you. Now." She forced a smile. "Leonard, this isn't the moment." "Now," he repeated, and he left the room. Madison stayed still for a few seconds, breathing deeply, trying to keep her perfect mask in place. But when she looked at her friends, she saw it. They weren't looking at her with envy. They were looking with pity. And for the first time, Madison Clark felt something she wasn't used to. Shame. In the kitchen, Harper was sitting on the floor with the triplets, handing out cookies and juice. Max was on her lap, Leo resting on her shoulder, Ben lying with his head on her leg. None of them spoke. They just existed there, safe, protected. And Harper, even with her heart still tight, whispered softly, "Thank you, Trey. You held on well." Ben lifted his little head. "The tray doesn't talk, Aunt Harper." Harper smiled, running her hand through his hair. "I know, Ben, but sometimes we need to say thank you anyway." Harper Doyle had an unofficial rule for dealing with embarrassing situations. Make a joke before someone else did. So when Leonard Wolf appeared at the kitchen door 15 minutes after the tea disaster and said in that calm, formal voice, "Harper, I need to speak with you in the office," she was already mentally practicing her best defense lines. She followed him up the stairs, trying not to trip over her own feet, which, considering the recent events, was a real challenge. When Leonard opened the office door and motioned for her to step inside, Harper took a deep breath, stepped forward, and the heel of her sandal caught on the edge of the rug. She stumbled forward, grabbed the desk at the last second, and stayed there, half bent, trying to recover her dignity. Leonard closed the door slowly, clearly trying not to laugh. "Are you all right?" Harper straightened up, adjusted her apron, and forced a smile. "Perfectly. I was just testing the rug's durability. It passed." He pointed to the chair in front of the desk. "Sit down, please." Harper obeyed, folding her hands on her lap and trying to look professional, even though she had almost fallen flat on her face a moment earlier. Leonard sat on the other side of the desk, loosened his tie with a tired motion, and set it aside. He stayed silent for a few seconds, just looking at her. Then he said, "What happened downstairs should not have happened." Harper shrugged, trying to look casual. "It was just an accident, Mr. Wolf. I tripped, spilled the tea, the stain comes out with cold water and baking soda. Nothing a good mop can't fix." She pointed at herself. "Literally, I am the mop." Leonard didn't smile. "Harper, you know I'm not talking about the tea." She stayed quiet. "I'm talking about what Madison said, how she treated you in front of everyone." Harper looked at her hands, then at the window, then anywhere but at his eyes. She was nervous. Her friends were there, the pressure from social media, those things. "I understand." "You don't have to defend her," Leonard said, his voice firm but gentle. "I'm not defending her," Harper answered quickly. Look, Mr. Wolf, I spill things. That's a fact. I broke 3 glasses this month. I argued with the laundry room door yesterday, and the vacuum hates me." So technically, she wasn't lying when she said I'm clumsy. Leonard tilted his head, studying her. "But she didn't stop there, did she?" Silence. Harper took a slow breath. "No," she admitted softly. "She didn't stop." Leonard stood up, walked to the window, and kept his back to her, looking at the garden below. "Harper, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." Her stomach tightened. "Okay." He turned, looking directly at her. "How does Madison treat my children when I'm not around?" Harper froze. She opened her mouth, closed it, looked at the pen on the desk, and whispered in her mind, "Help me out here, friend. What do I say?" The pen, of course, didn't answer. "Harper," Leonard repeated, softer this time. "I need to know." She took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. She doesn't hurt them, if that's what you're asking." "That's not what I asked." Harper bit her lip. She's busy. She has a lot on her mind. Campaigns, partnerships, social media. It's her job, I understand." "Harper." She stopped. Leonard walked back to the desk, but didn't sit. He stood, hands resting on the wooden surface. "Tell me the truth." Harper looked at him, saw the seriousness in his eyes, and felt something crack inside her chest. Because she wanted to speak. She wanted to say everything. But at the same time, she was afraid. So she did what she always did. She spoke in metaphors. "You know when you have a faucet dripping?" She began slowly. "And you know you should fix it, but you keep putting it off because, I don't know, it's dripping slowly, it's not flooding anything yet, so you can ignore it?" Leonard frowned, trying to follow. "Go on." "Sometimes the faucet drips for so long that we forget what it's like not to hear the sound. And then when someone finally fixes it, we realize how much it bothered us." She looked down at her hands. "The boys are the faucet, Mr. Wolf. And Miss Madison, she doesn't fix it. She just turns up the TV volume so she doesn't hear the drip." Silence. Leonard stood still, processing. Then he murmured, "And you? What do you do?" Harper smiled, but it was a sad smile. "I put on Band-Aids. Emotional ones, physical ones, whatever they need. But Band-Aids don't fix faucets, Mr. Wolf. They just hold things together until someone with real tools shows up." Leonard slowly sat down, running a hand over his face. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" Harper shrugged. "Because it's not my place. I'm the cleaning lady. I clean, I fix, I take care of the broken things. But I'm not family. I don't have the right to interfere." "You have every right," Leonard said firmly. "You spend more time with them than anyone else in this house, including me." And that sentence hurt more than anything else he could have said. Because it was true. Harper saw the pain in his eyes and felt her chest tighten. "Mr. Wolf, you're a good father. You work a lot, but when you're with them, they know they're loved." "But I'm not with them enough," he said quietly. Silence. Harper didn't know what to say. Then Leonard picked up the remote on the desk, the one for the house security system, and pressed a few buttons. The TV on the office wall turned on. "What are you doing?" Harper asked. "Checking something." The screen showed security footage from the main room, dated 3 days earlier. Harper saw Madison sitting on the couch, scrolling on her phone, while Leo tugged at her shirt, clearly asking for something. Madison waved him away, annoyed, without looking up from the screen. Leo gave up and walked away, holding his little pink bunny. Leonard switched the footage. Another scene, Max crying, clutching the blue bunny, while Madison walked past him without stopping, talking on the phone. And then, Harper entered the frame. She knelt down, wiped Max's tears, said something they couldn't hear, and both of them smiled. Leonard switched again. This time, Ben had fallen in the garden, his knees scraped. Madison was far off, taking selfies near the flowers. And Harper appeared running, a Band-Aid in her hand, cleaning the wound and making silly faces until Ben laughed. Leonard turned off the TV. He stayed quiet, staring at the black screen. Then he said so softly Harper barely heard, "I failed them. Mr. Wolf, I failed," he repeated, his voice breaking a little. "I was so focused on work, on keeping the company running, on not falling apart after my wife died, that I just handed off the parenting." Harper felt her eyes sting. "You didn't hand it off. You trusted." "I trusted the wrong person," Leonard said, looking at her. "And you've been carrying everything on your shoulders alone, without complaining, without asking for recognition, without—" His voice gave out. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. "Thank you, Harper, for everything. For them, for being here when I wasn't." Harper cleared her throat, trying not to cry. "I only did what was right, Mr. Wolf, and that makes you better than most people I know." Silence, long, heavy. Then Leonard looked at the desk drawer, opened it slowly, and took out a small velvet box. He set it on the desk in front of him. He didn't open it, he just looked at it. Harper recognized the box immediately. An engagement ring. Leonard stared at that little box for what felt like forever. Then he whispered, more to himself than to her, "What am I doing?" Harper didn't answer, because she didn't have an answer. She stood up slowly, gave a small respectful nod, and whispered, "Excuse me, Mr. Wolf." And she left the office in silence, closing the door gently, leaving Leonard alone, with the recordings, with the truths, and with the ring that, for the first time, seemed heavier than it should. Leonard Wolf was not a man of impulsive decisions. He built a tech empire on planning, data analysis, and strategic patience. But that Friday morning, while staring at the velvet box still on the office desk, he made the most impulsive decision of his life. He was going to uncover the truth. All of it. Live. At 9 a.m., he came down the stairs with a suitcase in hand and a neutral expression on his face. Madison was in the living room, fixing her hair in the mirror, checking her phone every 5 seconds. "Traveling again?" she asked, not looking away from the screen. "Meeting in Seattle," Leonard replied calmly. 2 days at most." Madison nodded, distracted. "Okay. Have a good trip." She didn't even look at him. Leonard tightened his grip on the suitcase handle and walked out the front door. He got into the car, drove around the block, and parked at the guest house, a smaller building at the back of the property, hidden by trees, with a clear view of the rear side of the main house. Donna Wolf, his mother, was waiting on the porch with her arms crossed and an expression that mixed concern with quiet approval. "Are you sure about this?" she asked as Leonard climbed the steps. "No," he admitted, "but I need to know." Donna sighed, but opened the door. "Then let's find out." The first thing Leonard saw from the back room window of the guest house was Madison recording a story. She was in the garden, wearing a flowing white dress, perfect smile, speaking to the camera. "Good morning, everyone. I woke up early today to enjoy this lovely sunshine. Life as a mom is busy, but we always find a way to take care of ourselves too, right? Self-care is self-love." She tossed her hair, blew a kiss, and turned off the camera. Then the mask fell. The smile disappeared. She checked the comments, rolled her eyes at something she read, and walked back into the house with irritated steps. Leonard made a mental note. First lie of the day, 9:17. At 10 a.m., he heard shouting from the living room. He couldn't see from where he was, but he recognized Madison's voice, loud and impatient. "Max, I already told you 3 times. It's not time to watch cartoons. I have a live stream soon." And then Max's small, hesitant voice, "But Aunt Harper said I could." "Aunt Harper is not the boss here." Silence. Leonard closed his eyes and took a slow breath. Second note, 10:04 a.m. Narrative control. At 11, he saw Harper in the yard with the triplets. She was trying to hang clothes on the line while Max, Leo, and Ben helped, which in practice meant pulling the clothes back down, making tents with the sheets, and laughing loudly every time Harper pretended to argue with the clothesline. "Listen, my friend clothesline," she said, pulling up a sheet that had fallen. "We already talked about this. I need you to hold things, not drop everything on the ground." Max repeated, copying her voice. "We already talked about this." Leo burst out laughing. Ben tried to hang his yellow bunny on the line. Harper gently took Sonny and handed him back. Sonny does not go on the line, Ben. He is VIP. Only hugs and cuddles. Ben hugged the bunny tightly and smiled in a way that could melt anyone. Leonard watched from the window, and something tightened in his chest. Because that chaos, those laughs, that lightness, was what a home should feel like. And he had lost that. Passed it on, ignored it. Third note, 11:22 a.m. Harper turns work into play. Triplets happy. At noon, everything changed. Leonard heard the living room door swing open, and Madison appeared in the yard holding her phone like a trophy. "Harper," she called, her voice sharp. "I need you to take the children inside. Now." Harper was in the middle of a tickle fight with Leo. She stopped, wiped her hands on her apron, and turned to Madison. "Is something wrong, Mrs. Madison? I have an important live stream. Partnership with a home decor brand. I cannot have child noise in the background." Harper blinked. "But they are playing in the yard. You could do the live inside, in the living room." Madison crossed her arms. "I want to do it here. The lighting is perfect." Pause. "So take them inside." Harper looked at the triplets, who had stopped playing and were watching the conversation with those quiet, worried eyes children have when they sense something is wrong. She took a deep breath. "All right, come on, kids. Let's go have a snack." Max crossed his little arms, upset. "I do not want a snack. I want to play." "We will play later," Harper said, offering her hand. "But Mommy always takes us away." Leo complained, squeezing his pink bunny. Madison rolled her eyes. "You have the whole house. It does not need to be here." Then she went inside, leaving Harper alone with 3 frustrated children and a half-finished yard. Leonard saw everything, every word, every gesture, every moment. Madison chose the camera over her children. Fourth note, 12:18 p.m. Inverted priorities. In the afternoon, Harper was in the living room trying to put a cartoon on TV for the triplets. But Gary, the remote, was having one of his difficult days. She pressed the button. Nothing happened. Pressed again, the channel changed to a cooking show. "Gary, for goodness sake," Harper murmured, shaking the remote. "Today is not the day for your tantrums." Max was sitting on the rug, watching. "Aunt Harper, did you lose again?" "Technically, Gary is winning," Harper corrected. "But I still have one trick left." She opened the battery cover, took out the batteries, blew on them, as if that ever made a difference, and put them back. Pressed the button. The cartoon appeared. Harper raised the remote in the air, triumphant. "I won." The triplets clapped, and Leonard, watching from the guesthouse window, smiled for the first time in days. Fifth note, 3:40 p.m. She turns frustration into a game. By the end of the afternoon, the triplets had created a secret club in their room. Harper had helped them build a little tent with sheets, and the 3 were inside with their bunnies, making up stories. "Bluey is the president," Max announced, holding the blue bunny. "Rosie is the vice president," Leo added. "And Sonny is the guard," Ben said, very serious. Harper was sitting at the entrance of the tent, folding clothes and listening to their wild stories. Madison walked down the hallway, saw the scene, and huffed. "Are you still playing with those old stuffed toys?" Max stuck his head out of the tent. "They are not old. They are our friends." Madison rolled her eyes and walked away. Harper bit her tongue, took a breath, and went back to folding clothes, whispering to the basket. "If I say what I'm thinking, do you promise not to tell anyone?" The basket, of course, kept the secret. Leonard wrote everything down. Sixth note, 5:55 p.m. Madison dismisses what matters to them. When the sun began to set, Leonard was exhausted. Not physically, emotionally, because he had seen, in less than a day, everything Harper had tried to say through metaphors and hesitation. Madison did not love the boys. She tolerated them, and there was a huge difference between the two. He was sitting at the edge of the bed, notes scattered beside him, when he heard soft footsteps outside. And then, knock, 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 taps on the door, smile, hesitant. Leonard froze. "Grandma?" Max's little voice came from the other side. "Grandma Donna, are you there?" Silence. Leonard looked at the door, holding his breath. "Max, come here," Harper's voice called from far away. "Let Grandma rest." "But I wanted to show her Bluey. Tomorrow, little one. Come on." The tiny footsteps moved away. Leonard let out the breath he'd been holding, put a hand on his chest, and felt his heart racing. He had almost been discovered. By his own son, who only wanted to show his bunny to his grandmother. And that hurt more than any meeting, any recording, any piece of evidence. Because he was hiding from his own children. In his own house, because of a woman he had chosen wrong. Leonard leaned his head against the wall and murmured into the silence, "What have I done?" Madison Clark knew how to recognize a threat when she saw one. And Harper Doyle, with her charming disasters, her conversations with inanimate objects, and her unbelievable ability to make 3 children love her unconditionally, was the biggest threat Madison had faced in years. Not a romantic threat, not yet, but a moral one. And that, in a way, was worse. Because Madison could compete with another woman who was beautiful, well-dressed, influential. But how do you compete with someone the boys ran to when they fell? Someone who turned chores into games? Someone who talked to a remote control and still seemed more present than Madison had ever managed to be? Simple. By eliminating the competition. And with Leonard traveling, or at least that's what she believed, this was the perfect opportunity. On Saturday morning, Madison asked for a meeting with the estate manager, Mr. Carver, a middle-aged, formal man who handled the administrative side of the property. They met in Leonard's empty office at 9 in the morning. Madison was flawless, as always, hair in a neat bun, neutral clothes, confident posture. "Mr. Carver, thank you for meeting on such short notice," she began, sitting down with her legs crossed. "I need to resolve a delicate situation before Leonard comes back." Carver adjusted his glasses and opened a folder. "Of course, Miss Clark. What is this about?" Madison sighed as if she were carrying a great burden. "It's about Harper." Carver raised an eyebrow. "Miss Doyle? She has worked here for almost 2 years. Is there a problem?" "Several," Madison said, her voice controlled but firm. "She has been crossing boundaries consistently. She disrespects hierarchy, interferes in decisions that aren't her place, and—" a dramatic pause. "She has been emotionally manipulating the children." Carver frowned. "Manipulating?" "She acts as if she were their mother," Madison continued, leaning slightly forward. "She gives orders, contradicts my instructions, builds excessive closeness. The children are confused about who is actually taking care of them." Carver wrote something on his notepad. "Do you have specific examples?" Madison had prepared her answer. "Last week, during the tea with my friends, she challenged me publicly, in front of important guests. It was embarrassing and completely inappropriate. She conveniently left out the part where she had humiliated Harper first. And more recently," Madison added, "I saw her encouraging the boys to disobey me, telling them they could watch cartoons whenever they wanted, even when I had set limits." Carver wrote down a few more lines. "I see, and is Mr. Wolfe aware of these situations?" Madison smiled sweetly. "Leonard is far too busy to notice these domestic nuances. That's why I'm bringing this to you. As the administrator, you have the authority to handle personal matters, correct?" Carver hesitated. "Technically, yes, but dismissals usually go through Mr. Wolfe." "He trusts my judgment," Madison cut in, her voice still calm but with a note of steel. "And frankly, Mr. Carver, I cannot keep an employee who disrupts the house routine and confuses the children. I need someone who respects boundaries." Pause. "So I'm formalizing the dismissal. Today." Carver looked down at the folder, visibly uncomfortable. "Miss Clark, perhaps it would be best to wait for Mr. Wolfe to return." "Today, Mr. Carver," Madison repeated, her voice 1 degree colder. "Or should I call Leonard in the middle of important meetings to deal with something that should be simple?" Carver sighed, picked up a form, and began to fill it out. Harper was in the Triplets' room, helping Ben find the yellow bunny that had disappeared under the bed, when the housekeeper knocked on the door. "Harper? Mr. Carver wants to speak with you, in the office." Harper felt a tightness in her stomach. "Now?" "Now." She handed Sonny to Ben, ruffled his hair gently, and went down the stairs with her heart beating faster than normal. When she walked into the office, she saw Mr. Carver sitting behind Leonard's desk with an expression she knew well. Pity. And that was never a good sign. "Sit down, Harper," he said, pointing to the chair. She sat, her hands clasped in her lap. "Did something happen?" Carver took a deep breath. "Harper, I'm sorry, but Miss Clark has filed a formal complaint, and I was instructed to process your dismissal, effective immediately." The world stopped. Harper blinked, trying to understand. "Dismissal? Why?" "Hierarchy conflicts, inappropriate behavior around the children, disrespect in a professional environment," Carver read from the paper, clearly uncomfortable. The decision has already been made. Harper felt the ground disappear under her feet. Mr. Carver, I didn't do anything wrong. I just took care of them. I know, he said quietly, but I don't have the authority to reverse this without Mr. Wolf, and he only comes back tomorrow. Harper closed her eyes, took a breath, and nodded. Okay, I understand. She stood up, her legs shaking a little. How much time do I have? Until the end of the day. Harper left the office in silence, went up the stairs, and headed straight to the small room she had in the back of the mansion. She pulled the old suitcase from under the bed and started packing. Half an hour later, she was walking through the empty hallways, saying goodbye. She stopped in front of the laundry room door, placed her hand on the wood, and whispered, "Oh, friend, it was good while it lasted. I'm sorry for the times I argued with you. You're temperamental, but you're a good soul." She tapped the door lightly. The hinge creaked softly, like a farewell. Harper smiled, even with burning eyes. "Don't cry, okay? Only one of us has a loose hinge, and I'd rather it be you." She went to the kitchen, stopped in front of the bucket that lived beside the sink. "And you, big guy? How many times did we spill water together, huh? You're dramatic, but I'll miss you." She gave the bucket a gentle kick. It wobbled. She laughed, but it was a wet laugh. Then she walked to the living room, picked up Gary, the remote, sitting on the coffee table, held him with both hands like something precious. "Gary," she began, her voice unsteady, "you're impossible, stubborn, temperamental. But we had an agreement, didn't we? I asked politely, you obeyed, most of the time." She placed the remote back in its spot, slowly. "Take care of them for me, okay? And if the next person doesn't know the battery trick, teach them." And that was the moment Max, Leo, and Ben came running into the room. "Aunt Harper!" Max shouted, jumping. "Come play." Harper crouched down to their height and tried to smile. I can't play right now, little ones." Leo frowned. "Why?" Harper bit her lip, trying to find the right words. "Because I'm going on a trip." Ben hugged Sonny to his chest. "Will you come back tomorrow?" Silence. Harper felt tears rising but held them back. I don't know, Ben." Max stepped forward, holding his blue bluey. "But you promised you wouldn't leave." And that sentence, that one sentence, broke Harper inside. She pulled all three of them into a tight hug, burying her face in their hair, breathing the scent of children's shampoo and cookies. "I won't disappear from your hearts," she whispered, her voice thick. "Never. You'll always be here." She pointed to her heart. "And I'll always be here." She touched Max's heart, then Leo's, then Ben's. The three of them started crying. Not the tantrum kind, the kind that comes when a child somehow understands something important is slipping away. Leo grabbed her shirt tightly. "Don't go, Aunt Harper." "I have to, sweetheart," Harper said, wiping the tears from his face. "But you'll be fine. You have each other, and you have your dad and Grandma Donna." Ben asked in a tiny voice, "And Gary?" Harper laughed, even through tears. "And Gary too." She kissed each of their foreheads one by one, then stood up, picked up her suitcase, and walked out through the back door without looking back. Because if she did, she wouldn't be able to leave. When Leonard returned to the mansion late in the afternoon, officially back from Seattle, the first thing he noticed was the silence. But not the silence from the triplets that had worried him days earlier. It was another kind of silence, empty. He walked in through the front door, dropped his bag, and called. "Max? Leo? Ben?" Nothing. He went to the living room, saw Gary in his usual place, but something felt different. He went upstairs, walked down the hallway, and heard quiet sobs coming from the boys' room. He opened the door. The three of them were lying together in the same bed, hugging their bunnies, their little faces swollen from crying. Donna was sitting beside them, running her hand through their hair, her eyes red as well. "What happened?" Leonard asked, his chest tightening. Donna looked at him and said in a heavy voice, "Madison fired Harper." Leonard stood still, processing. Then he slowly turned to his mother. "She did what?" Leonard Wolf had built an empire on logic, data, and control. But that Saturday night, looking at his three children curled up on the bed, crying for the woman who had been unfairly fired, he felt something he had never felt before. Absolute fury. And worse, guilt. Because he had seen it. He had watched from the guest house, he had taken notes, he had known something was wrong. And even so, he hadn't acted fast enough. Donna stood up from the edge of the bed, wiped her own tears, and looked at her son with that expression only mothers have. A mix of disappointment, worry, and resolve. "We need to talk," she said quietly. Leonard nodded, kissed each child on the forehead, and left the room with his mother. When he closed the door, he turned to Donna and asked, his voice controlled but dangerously low, "Tell me everything. From the beginning." Half an hour later, Leonard was in the office with the door locked. Donna had given her version. Madison showing up with the house manager, the firing being formalized while he was traveling, Harper leaving quietly without causing a scene, the triplets finding out and falling apart. But Leonard needed more. He needed proof. He called Mr. Carver's cell phone, even though it was almost 10 at night. The manager answered on the third ring, his voice tired. "Mr. Wolf? I wasn't expecting." "Carver," Leonard cut in. "Why was Harper fired?" Silence on the other end. "Sir, I received orders from Miss Clark. She filed a complaint, said it was urgent." "What kind of complaint?" Carver hesitated. "Inappropriate behavior. Overstepping boundaries with the children, disrespecting hierarchy." Leonard closed his eyes, taking a slow breath. "And you believe that?" "Mr. Wolf, I just followed protocol. Miss Clark has authority when you're away, and she was very persuasive." Leonard tapped his fingers on the desk, thinking, "Do you have the paperwork?" "Yes, sir, it's on file." "Send it to me. Now." "But sir, it's late." "Now, Carver." "Yes, sir." Leonard hung up, opened his laptop, and began the real investigation. The first thing he did was access the security footage from the past few months. He had already seen some during the mansion test, but now he was searching for something specific. Evidence. He found dozens. Madison yelling at the triplets because they made noise during a live stream. Madison taking the bunny out of Ben's hand to improve the aesthetics of a photo. Madison ignoring Leo when he tugged at her blouse, asking for attention. And in every single scene, Harper appeared right after, wiping tears, returning bunnies, turning cries into laughter. Leonard saved every file. Then he went online. He opened Madison's profile, scrolled through her recent posts, stopped at the children's clothing campaign, the one where she had forced the triplets to wear uncomfortable outfits and take away their bunnies. The picture was perfect. Soft filters, digitally adjusted smiles, an emotional caption about family love. But Leonard went straight to the comments and found gold. At Real Mom 13, "Anyone else notice the kids look uncomfortable? Careful observer. Those smiles don't look real. I've seen happy kids, and that's not it." Constructive critic. "Where are the stuffed animals they always have? Where's the authenticity?" And the bedtime follower. "Madison, are you okay? Because your family posts feel forced. The kids don't look happy." Madison had deleted some comments, but not all. Leonard took screenshots of each one. Then he remembered the live stream. The one Madison did while the triplets were asking for attention. He searched the archives, found the auto-saved video, and watched. He saw Madison irritated, lightly pushing Max aside when he showed up on camera. He saw her turning the camera quickly when Leo started crying in the background. And he saw her saying, with that fake smile, "Sorry guys, kids are such a mess, right? But we love them." The chat responded instantly, "Where's the love? She looks annoyed." "Are those kids okay?" Leonard saved the video and kept searching. That's when his phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. He opened it. It was a video. No context, no explanation. Just a phone recording, clearly filmed discreetly. Leonard pressed play and recognized it immediately. It was the afternoon tea. The camera was shaky, filmed from below, probably by one of Madison's friends who had felt uncomfortable with the situation. In the video, you could hear everything. Madison calling Harper clumsy. Madison suggesting that Harper thought she was more of a mother than an employee. And then, the part that made Leonard's chest tighten, came Harper's voice, calm and steady, saying, "I really care about them. Maybe even too much. But not because I cross boundaries. It's because someone needs to." And right after that, the heavy silence. The video ended with Madison turning pale and her friends looking down, uncomfortable. Leonard watched it 3 times, saved it, and felt the last piece of the puzzle fall into place. He was about to close the laptop when he heard noise coming from the living room. He went downstairs and found Max, Leo, and Ben sitting on the rug in their pajamas, holding their bunnies. Max was holding a remote, not the original Gary, but another one they had found in a drawer. "What are you 3 doing awake?" Leonard asked, crouching down to their level. We were trying to watch cartoons, Max explained, holding the remote with both hands. But Gary too doesn't work. Leonard blinked. Gary, too? Leo nodded, pointing at another remote on the floor. That's Gary 3. That one doesn't work either. Ben lifted the yellow bunny. Aunt Harper knew the trick. Leonard felt his chest tighten. What trick? Max explained, very serious. She took the batteries out, blew on them, and put them back. Then Gary listened. She said, please too, Leo added, and it worked. Leonard took the remote. Gary, too, from Max's hands, opened the battery cover, pretended to blow on it, and put it back in place. He pressed the button. The TV turned on. The three boys clapped. But then Max stopped, looked at his father with those big bright eyes, and asked, Daddy, Mamadi called us a hurricane. Leonard froze. What? She said we were 3 little hurricanes, Leo repeated softly. And that we ruined her live stream. Ben added, hugging Sonny. But Aunt Harper said we had energy, and that it was good. Leonard felt something break inside him. He pulled all 3 into a tight hug, burying his face in their hair, trying to control the wave of emotion. You're not a hurricane, he said, his voice unsteady. You're perfect. And the person who said that is wrong. Max asked quietly, will Aunt Harper come back? Leonard didn't know the answer, but he knew what he needed to do. I'm bringing her back, he promised. I promise. Ben held out his little pinky finger. Leonard hooked his pinky with all 3 of theirs, and right then he swore he would fix everything. At 2 in the morning, Leonard was back in the office. He had gathered all the evidence. Security footage showing neglect, online comments questioning Madison's behavior, video of the live stream where she showed irritation, video from the tea gathering showing Harper being humiliated, false termination paperwork, testimony from his own children. He placed everything in a digital folder. Ben picked up his phone, dialed the company lawyer. Leonard, it's 2 in the morning. I know, Leonard said, his voice firm. But I need you to prepare some documents. Tomorrow morning, termination of engagement, contract cancellations, and a reinstatement letter. Reinstatement? For Harper Doyle, with a salary increase and a formal apology. Pause. Leonard, what happened? He looked at the photo of the triplets on his desk and answered, I finally saw the truth. Harper Doyle was staring at her phone as if it had just told her a terrible joke. The message was short, formal, and completely unexpected. Harper, I need to settle paperwork and overdue payments. Could you attend the Saturday dinner at 7 p.m.? Formal attire. Sincerely, Leonard Wolfe. She read it 3 times, looked at the mirror in the small rented room where she was temporarily living, and whispered, He's kidding, right? The mirror, of course, didn't answer, but Harper kept talking anyway. Like, I was fired, thrown out. I left crying with an old suitcase, and now he wants me back? For a formal dinner, with the woman who fired me sitting there, probably? She tossed the phone on the bed and crossed her arms. No, I'm not going. This is a trap. But then the phone vibrated again. Another message. The boys asked for you, every day. Harper felt her chest tighten. She picked up the phone, typed, I'll go. Saturday night arrived too fast. Harper was in the tiny apartment bathroom, trying to pull up the zipper of the only semi-formal dress she owned. A simple black one that had definitely seen better days. The zipper got stuck halfway up her back. She pulled. Nothing. Pulled again. The zipper went down. Oh no, she whispered, turning to the dress as if it could hear her. This is not the time to sabotage me, friend. We had a deal. You cooperate today. I wash you gently next time. She tried again. The zipper went up 3/4 of the way and stopped. Harper took a deep breath, twisted her arm in a way that was probably not recommended by any anatomy book, and finally managed to close it. There, she said, adjusting the dress in front of the mirror. We survived. Now let's survive the rest of the night. She slipped on her heels, the only pair she owned, and walked carefully down the stairs of the building. When she reached the sidewalk, the driver Leonard had sent was already waiting. Harper got into the car, sat with sweaty hands, and whispered to the purse on her lap, If I run away in the middle of dinner, you'll cover for me, right? The purse did not answer. But Harper was sure it understood. The event hall was flawless. Soft lights, tables decorated with white flowers, a small stage with a microphone, and dozens of people dressed like they had stepped out of a luxury magazine. Harper entered through the side door, just like Leonard had instructed, and immediately felt like a fish out of water. She straightened her dress, tried not to think about the zipper that threatened to open at any moment, and searched for a quiet corner to wait. That was when she saw the triplets. Max, Leo, and Ben were sitting at a table near the stage, dressed in tiny suits, each holding their own bunny. But they were not playing. They were not laughing. They were serious, as if they knew something important was about to happen. Harper felt her chest tighten. Then Max saw her. His eyes widened. He nudged Leo, Leo nudged Ben, and the three of them stood up at the same time, running toward her with their bunnies bouncing in their hands. "Aunt Gary!" Max shouted, throwing himself into her arms. Harper blinked. "Aunt Gary?" Leo hugged her leg. "We gave you a new name, because you're Gary's friend," Ben added, very serious. "And you know the battery trick." Harper laughed, even with her eyes burning, and knelt down to be at their level. "I missed you so much." "We missed you too," Max said, squeezing Bluey. "Gary too does not work, and Daddy doesn't know how to blow on it, right?" Leo added. Harper cleared her throat, trying not to cry right there. "Are you all right?" All three nodded. But Ben asked softly, "Are you going away again?" Harper did not know the answer, so she just kissed each of their foreheads and said, "I'm here now, all right?" They nodded. Then Donna appeared, taking the boys by the hand with a kind smile toward Harper. "Come on, boys. Let Aunt Harper breathe a little." Harper was alone again. She took a deep breath and went to the bathroom. In the hall's luxurious bathroom, Harper looked at herself in the mirror and whispered, "Okay, my friend. I need some moral support here, because I don't know what I'm doing. I don't belong here. I don't—" She stopped, took a deep breath. "But the boys need me, so I'll stay, at least until I figure out what Leonard wants." The mirror reflected her image: simple dress, minimal makeup, hair tied up in a hurry. And Harper thought, "I am the complete opposite of everything out there." But before she could continue her internal speech, her shoe heel broke. It literally broke. The right heel simply detached and fell onto the marble floor with a pathetic "talk." Harper looked at the shoe, looked at the mirror, and laughed. Of course this would happen. She took off both shoes, tossed them into her purse, and left the bathroom barefoot, because honestly, at that point, she had already given up on trying to look perfect. When Harper returned to the hall, dinner had already begun. Madison was sitting at the main table, stunning in a white gala dress, hair styled in perfect waves, a smile straight out of a toothpaste commercial. She chatted animatedly with the guests, laughing at the right moments, posing discreetly for photos. The perfect bride. Harper stayed in the corner, watching, her stomach twisting. Then Leonard stepped onto the stage. The entire room went silent. Madison straightened in her seat, smiling, clearly waiting for the moment. The proposal. The ring. The public approval. Leonard took the microphone, adjusted his tie, and looked at the audience. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here." Polite applause. "I know many of you are expecting an announcement today," he continued, his voice calm, "and I will make one. But before that," he looked directly toward the corner where Harper stood, and said, loud and clear, "I would like to invite Miss Harper Doyle to the stage." The entire hall turned toward her. Madison went pale. And Harper? Harper froze, barefoot, her dress slightly crooked, her heart racing. Leonard stretched out his hand. "Harper, please." She looked at the triplets. They were smiling. She looked at Donna. She nodded, encouraging. And then, taking a deep breath, Harper walked across the hall, barefoot, head held high, and stepped onto the stage. Harper Doyle was on the stage, barefoot next to Leonard Wolfe, trying to understand what was happening. The entire hall was silent. Madison, seated at the main table, had a frozen smile on her face, the kind of smile that tries to hide panic. And Leonard? Leonard held the microphone with a calmness that seemed rehearsed. He looked at Harper and said softly, just for her, "Do you trust me?" Harper blinked, confused. "I think so?" "Then stay here. Just stay." He turned to the audience and began, "Good evening again. I know many of you were expecting a special announcement tonight, and I will make one. But not the one you imagine." Soft murmurs spread through the room. Madison shifted in her chair, uncomfortable. Leonard continued, his voice steady. "Before anything else, I need to introduce someone. Harper Doyle worked in my home for almost 2 years. She took care of my children, their routine, everything that I too busy failed to see." Harper felt her face grow warm. She tried to take a step back, but Leonard made a small gesture for her to stay. And recently, he said, looking directly at Madison, she was fired under accusations of inappropriate behavior. The hall grew even quieter. Madison raised her hand slightly, trying to interrupt. "Leonard, honey, this is not the moment." "It is exactly the moment," he cut in, his voice still calm, but with a weight that left no room for argument. He signaled to someone backstage. A large screen lowered behind the stage, and Leonard pressed a remote. The first image that appeared was a screenshot of a profile. The photo from the children's clothing campaign, Max, Leo, and Ben dressed in beige, edited smiles, a perfect caption about family and love. "This photo was posted 3 weeks ago," Leonard explained. "Tens of thousands of likes, praising comments. It looks perfect, right?" He changed to the next slide. Comments. "The children look uncomfortable. These smiles don't look real. Where are their stuffed animals they always have?" The audience read in silence. Madison turned pale. "Leonard, these are just people who don't understand." "People who noticed," Leonard corrected. He switched slides again, this time a video. The live stream. The one where Madison was filming and the triplets appeared in the background, asking for attention, being ignored. The audio played softly but loud enough for everyone to hear. "Sorry guys, kids are such a mess, right? But we love them." And then the camera jerking when Leo started crying. Leonard paused the video. This was live, in front of thousands of people. And in the comments, many asked, "Are those children okay?" Madison stood up, her voice shaking. "You're exposing me? In front of everyone? Because of online comments?" "No," Leonard said, still firm. "I'm exposing the truth, because my children deserve that." He looked at the triplets who were seated with Donna holding their bunnies. "Max, Leo, Ben," he called. "Can you come here?" The three looked at their grandmother. Donna nodded, encouraging, and they walked up to the stage, one after the other, each holding his bunny. Harper knelt down instinctively, getting to their level, and Max immediately grabbed her hand. Leonard knelt too, staying at eye level with them. "I'm going to ask a question, okay? And you answer only the truth." The three nodded. "Do you remember when the cartoon disappeared from the TV?" Max nodded seriously. "Mamadi took Sunny Bear away." "And what happened?" Leonard asked gently. Leo answered in a small voice, Aunt Harper put it back. "How did she do that?" Ben raised the yellow bunny. "She talked to Gary." The audience let out a few soft laughs, but they were warm laughs, not mocking ones. Leonard smiled slightly. "And did Gary obey?" Max nodded strongly. "He always obeys Aunt Harper, because she knows the battery trick." "And no one else knows it?" Leonard asked. The three shook their heads. "Gary only works with Harper," Max explained, as if it were obvious. The audience was now smiling openly. Some people were even wiping their eyes. Harper was holding back tears, biting her lip. And Madison? Madison stood there shaking, trying to maintain her composure. "Leonard, this is ridiculous. You're using children to humiliate me?" "No," Leonard said, standing up slowly and looking at her. "I'm letting them speak the truth I should have heard before." He turned to the audience. "Harper was fired for crossing boundaries, but the truth is that she did what I failed to do. Be present, care, protect." He looked at Madison. "And you, Madison, used my absence to build a perfect narrative on social media. But you forgot that I have eyes, and that my children have a voice." Madison stepped forward, her voice rising. "I took care of them. You took their bunnies away to improve the look of a photo," Leonard said. "You called them 3 little hurricanes when they knocked over an expensive product. You ignored them when they asked for attention because you were recording content." Each sentence was an accusation. Each sentence was true, and Madison, trying to defend herself, only made it worse. "They're energetic. Any mother knows that." "You're not their mother," Leonard said, and the words hit the entire room like a weight. Absolute silence. Madison's mouth fell open. Leonard took a steady breath and said firm, "The engagement is canceled, effective immediately. You have 1 week to move out of the mansion. All partnership contracts with the company are terminated." Madison opened her mouth, closed it, tried to speak, but nothing came out. And then she did the worst possible thing, with a hard, hurt, furious look. "This is your fault. You manipulated everyone. You." "I protected them," Harper said, her voice trembling but steady, "because someone had to." And that sentence, the same one from the tea incident, the one that had silenced a room weeks earlier, ended everything. Madison turned, grabbed her purse, and walked out of the hall with quick steps, her white dress flowing behind her. The door slammed, and silence returned until someone in the crowd started clapping, slow, then someone else, and another, and within seconds the entire hall was applauding. Not for the drama, but for the truth. Harper looked at Leonard, her eyes bright. I don't know what to say. He smiled, tired. You don't need to say anything. Max tugged on her dress. Aunt Harper, are you coming back home? Harper looked at Leonard, he nodded, and she knelt down, pulling all three of them into a tight hug. I'm coming back, I promise. Ben lifted his little pinky, and this time Harper knew it was a promise she would keep. 6 months later, the Wolf Mansion had changed. Not physically. The walls were still in the same place, the marbles still shined, the garden was still perfect. But it had life. Toys scattered across the living room, drawings taped to the refrigerator with colorful tape, the smell of cookies coming from the oven at 3 in the afternoon, laughter echoing through the hallways. And Harper Doyle, in the middle of everything, covered in flour from head to toe. Okay, team, she said, looking at the triplets sitting on the kitchen counter, also covered in flour. The recipe said 1 cup of flour. 1, not 3. Max shrugged, holding his blue bluey in one hand and a wooden spoon in the other. But we wanted big cookies. Big cookies don't need 3 cups of flour, Max, Harper said, trying to wipe the counter with a rag that had already given up on life. Leo licked his finger coated in raw dough and smiled. It tastes good. Don't eat raw dough, Leo, Harper said, laughing. You're going to get sick. Ben, always the quiet one, lifted the yellow Sonny and asked, Can Sonny try it? Harper looked at the stuffed bunny, sighed, and answered seriously, Sonny has a stuffed stomach. He can handle it. All three burst into laughter, and Harper, even covered in flour with the kitchen looking like a disaster zone, felt that warm feeling in her chest, the feeling of someone who was finally home, because things really had changed. Harper was no longer just the housekeeper. She came back, yes, the day after the dinner, with her suitcase in hand and her eyes still swollen from crying, from relief this time. But Leonard had sat with her, shared a cup of coffee, and told her something that changed everything. I don't want to hire you back as staff. I want to hire you as part of the family. House manager, if you want a formal title. But in practice, you're the one who keeps this place standing. And then he had done something unexpected. He offered support for Harper to open a small home organization business, something she had always dreamed of but never had the courage to try. For the last 6 months, Harper had balanced both, taking care of the Wolf home and building something of her own. And for the first time in her life, she felt complete. That night, after finally getting the flour out of her hair and out of 3 children, Harper put the triplets to bed. One by one, she kissed their foreheads, placed their bunnies beside them, and whispered good night like a sacred ritual. When she went downstairs, she found Leonard sitting on the couch, the lights dim, with an expression that was strangely nervous. Everything okay? Harper asked, sitting next to him. Everything, he said, but his voice sounded a little off. Harper frowned. You seem nervous. What happened? Hard meeting? No, Leonard said. I just want to show you something. He picked something up from the coffee table. Gary, the remote. Harper laughed. Did he act up again? No, Leonard said, holding the remote with both hands. But I learned the trick. He turned the remote around, opened the battery cover, and removed the 2 batteries. Slowly, carefully. And then he did something Harper never expected. He stood up, walked to her, and knelt down. Harper froze. Leonard, what are you doing? He smiled, that uneven little smile he rarely showed, but the one she had learned to love over the past few months. You taught me something, Harper. You taught me that the people with real energy aren't the ones in charge. They're the ones who care, who protect, who turn chaos into laughter. He lifted the 2 batteries, one in each hand. And I realized that without you, this house has no energy. I have no energy. My children, they need you. I need you. Harper felt her eyes sting. Leonard, marry me, he asked, his voice unsteady. Marry me? And them too? Silence. One whole microsecond where Harper looked at the batteries, the remote, Leonard kneeling in front of her, the same room where she had been humiliated months earlier. and where now she was being chosen, not tolerated, not accepted out of obligation, chosen. She began, her voice cracking. You don't have to be perfect, Leonard said softly. You just have to be yourself. The woman who talks to objects, who loses arguments with doors, who takes batteries out of remotes and wins quiet battles. Harper laughed, even while crying. I'm going to ruin everything. I spilled coffee this morning. I fought with the vacuum yesterday. You're exactly what we need, Leonard said, cutting her off. Then he smiled again. Marry me. Harper wiped her tears, looked at him and whispered. Yes. Leonard smiled, that full, genuine smile she had never seen before. He took her hand, placed the 2 batteries in her palm and closed her fingers around them. Now the energy is yours, he said, forever. Harper pulled him into a hug, hiding her face in his shoulder, laughing and crying at the same time. And for a few seconds the world stopped. Until Aunt Harper, Mamadi Harper. They both turned. Max, Leo, and Ben were standing at the top of the stairs in pajamas, messy hair, bunnies under their arms. Weren't you sleeping? Harper asked, quickly wiping her face. We heard noise, Max explained, running down the stairs. And we wanted to watch Sunny Bear. Turn on the cartoon, Mamadi Harper, Leo said, jumping on the couch. Ben just smiled, hugging Sunny. Harper looked at Leonard. He shrugged, smiling. Welcome to the family. Harper picked up Gary, the remote control that had changed everything, put the batteries back in, and turned on the TV. Sunny Bear popped up on the screen. The triplets screamed with joy and settled on the couch, one on each side of Harper. Leonard sat on the other side, wrapping an arm around her. And Harper, looking at that beautiful chaos. 3 kids, 3 bunnies, a temperamental remote, and a man who had finally learned what truly mattered, murmured, Here, the ones with energy, are all of you. She kissed Max's head, then Leo's, then Ben's. I just try to keep up. In the background on a news segment, Too Quick to Matter, Madison Clark appeared for a moment. Lost contracts, lawsuits for breach of contract, improper use of images, the perfect influencer had fallen. But at the Wolf estate, no one was watching. They were too busy being a family. A real one, this time, and forever. So? What did you think of Harper and Leonard's journey? Did you expect the story of the cleaning lady who talked to objects to end with her becoming an official part of the family? Tell me in the comments. I want to know, what was your favorite moment? Was it the legendary battery scene, the final proposal, or the moment the triplets called Harper Auntie Gary? On a scale from 0 to 10, what score would you give this story? And tell me, were you rooting for Harper from the start, or did you think for a second she wouldn't make it back to the mansion? If you like this story about love, family, romantic comedy, and second chances, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the emotional stories coming every week. Here, every week brings a new tale full of humor, heart, and that happy ending we all love. See you in the next story.